Hi everybody and welcome back to Fit for French, which is our series of videos where we explain French grammar in English. In this video we are talking about the French accents, which does not mean that we're talking about French dialects. It's les accents that we want to talk about. You know, it's the accent circumflexe, the accent grave and the accent aigu. And is the accent circumflex with which we will actually start. Let's have a look at a couple of words. You find the accent circumflex above words like être ou la fenêtre, le château, le gâteau, and also le rôle and sur, which does not mean sur, which is actually one of the functions that this accent circumflex has. So let's have a closer look. The accent circumflex, that's the accent that we French teachers like to call the roof. It looks a little bit like a roof. It does actually produce a difference in meaning. And sur is the perfect example here. If you have sur with an accent circumflex, it means sure. Okay, so sur with the circumflex and sure is actually quite close. And if you do not put the accent circumflex, then what's left over is sur, and the pronunciation is just the same. But the sur without the accent circumflex means above and over. You know this. So you want to be very careful and not make that mistake, because this actually is a mistake. And I will actually also mark this as a mistake when I do my corrections. Outside that difference in meaning, we French teachers are actually not allowed to give you a mistake for that accent circumflex if it's missing. We just put it in. But if it does produce a difference in meaning, then you absolutely need it. And if it's not there, then it is a mistake. So here you have your accent circumflex, être, la fenêtre, le château, le gâteau, le rôle, sur. It is actually quite difficult to come up with a rule that tells you where to put it, but I have a little tip for you. Let's have a look at a couple of words in French that have the accent circumflex. It's la forêt, le château, une île, or un hôpital. And if you look close enough, you find that these words look almost like the English words, which of course has a reason. In Old French, the accent circumflex wasn't there. Often, where nowadays we have the accent circumflex, there was an S. And if you compare this with the English words, you find that the S is still there. La forêt in English becomes the forest, so here you have your S. And le château in English becomes the castle. Une île is of course an island in English, and you don't pronounce the S in island, but it's still there when you write it. And of course an hôpital is a hospital. And the reason for this is that you remember in history maybe the date 1066. In 1066, this French person called Guillaume le Conquérant actually went to England, and he hit the English over the head with a stick and put himself on the throne and became king of England. And for the past couple of hundred years, a French person was sitting on the English throne and was king of England. And the French, of course, brought their language. And that language actually went into the English language. And this is one of the reasons why we have so many French-sounding words in English. So here we have it. The accent circumflex often was an S in Old French, and this is why la forêt in French gives you the forest in English. But enough for the history. Let's continue with the accent aigu. Now we have a couple of examples here, like la télé, le café, le marché, le médecin, répéter, or nous préférons. So the accent aigu, this is the one that goes towards the upper right-hand corner. La télé, the accent goes towards the upper right-hand corner. The good news is you only find the accent aigu above the E. Alright, it's only above the E. There is no O accent aigu, that doesn't exist, or U accent aigu, that doesn't exist. And as far as the pronunciation goes and the accent aigu, it actually tells you how to pronounce the E above which it is a very closed sound. It's a bit like the French, like the English word bed. It's actually la télé. You hear that it's a bit more closed even. Like if you compare it to bed. La télé, bed. Le café, bed. But bed is close enough. It is that sound that you have in bed. Just close it a bit more. La télé, le café, le marché, le médecin. So, accent aigu goes towards the upper right hand corner. You'll only find it above the E, and it tells you how to pronounce that sound with a closed, very clear E. La télé, le café, le marché. Let's continue with the accent grave. A couple of examples. J'achète, la mère, la règle. And there's also an accent grave above other vowels like la and ou. So, the accent grave, that's the one that goes towards the upper left-hand corner. Accent aigu, upper right-hand corner. Accent grave, upper left-hand corner. If it is above an E, it tells you how to pronounce that sound. It's a very open E, like in the English word help. J'achète, help. La mère, help. La règle, help. And we had la télé, it was very closed. And j'achète, it's very open. If it is above the E, it tells you how to pronounce that word. If it's not above the E, and you will find it actually above A and U also, it does produce a difference in meaning, and this is very important. If you compare la et la, the pronunciation is exactly the same. La with the accent grave means there, over there. And without, it becomes the article that tells you that a noun is feminine, actually, which we don't have in English. If you compare où et où with accent grave, it means where. Où sont tes parents? Where are your parents? And if you do not have the accent grave, it means or. Ta sœur ou ton frère, your sister or your brother. So you want to be very careful where it produces a difference in meaning. So the accent grave above the E tells you how to pronounce it. It's a very open one. J'achète la mère, la règle. And you want to be careful. The accent aigu you only find above the E, but the accent grave also produces differences in meaning, and you also find it above the A and the U. So, and now of course we have that question that we French teachers are always asked, when do I use this and when do I use this? We can of course sit down and learn all this by heart. This is what most students actually do, if they learn it at all. And unfortunately there is no clear rule, but I can give you a tip. There's a little indication. So I will try to explain to you when to use the accent aigu and when to use the accent grave. Now the first thing that you have to do is you have to read your words in syllables. You know what a syllable is, I tell you in a moment. Read your words in syllables. This is not so complicated. La télé, 2 syllables. Télé. Café, 2 syllables. Café. Répéter, 3 syllables. Répéter. Préférons. Read your words in syllables. Unité. La séquence. Okay, with a bit of training, this is not a problem. La télé, le café, répéter, préférons, and so on. And here we have a couple of words that have the accent grave. Achète, frère. Frère becomes 1 syllable only. Très becomes 1 syllable. Michel, trapèze. Okay, try to read your words in syllables. And once you get the hang of this, then you actually go to the next step. And the next step looks like this. Often, not always, but often, the E accent grave, the E accent aigu is at the end of a syllable. It's the end of a syllable. Have a look at the words. Élève. E accent aigu is already the end of the syllable. It's its own syllable, so to speak. So we have élève. With the lève, you have the V at the end of the syllable when you pronounce it. Élève. lève. O, end of the syllable, E accent aigu, lève, end of the syllable, V, lève. We have préfère. Pré, end of a syllable, E accent aigu, faire. E accent grave, the R is at the end of a syllable. Frère, same thing. It's the syllable is on the R, it's frère. But the interesting thing is frère is brother, and there's also the word frérot, which is it's a bit like, oh, my little brother, so to speak. It's a very endearing name, frérot. And if you turn from frère to frérot, frérot has two syllables. You see the accent changing. Frérot. Now, all of a sudden, the E accent aigu is the end of a syllable. Frère becomes frérot. You have la règle. Règle, the L is at the end of a syllable, règle. But you have régulier. You have géographie, G, end of a syllable, accent aigu. You have mémé, mémé, which is grammar, mémé, two times E accent aigu at the end of a syllable, but you have la mère, which is the R, mère, at the end of a syllable, and then you have the accent grave. Unfortunately, this is not 100% rule, especially at the end of a word. This does not go. You have the infinitive regarder, for example, which is spelled ER, and the pronunciation is still E at the end of a syllable, but there is no accent aigu. But in the middle of a word, it actually is a good rule. So you want to remember this? Put your words, cut your words up in syllables, pronounce them, and often the E accent aigu is at the end of a syllable. Élève, préfère, frère, but frérot, règle, but régulier, géo, mémé, but mère. Ladies and gentlemen, this is it. Thanks for watching. I see you around when we go for the next video. Until then, we say bye-bye and have a good time.